Hey, good evening, ladies and gentle drunks. My name is Kevin Olson. I'm a recovered alcoholic. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Sorry I'm late, guys. It's a long story, technical difficulties for sure, and I'm very glad to be here. I'm glad you guys are here, and I would like to welcome you all to the fourth dimension. Big book study, that is, and I'm glad you guys are here. I know I'm certainly glad I'm here. I'm in Houston, Texas today, this evening, and really glad to be here, you guys. So let's start, as we always do, with the set-aside prayer.
Hey, Kevin, we did the set aside prayer and the two rocketed the page 8 and page 25 without you. We started without you, those parts.
I'm
We
glad you did. Have you
we did
started the
the
steps in
hands.
general? Have you started step 4?
We had a little bit of discussion on how we set up the page for it, just while we were waiting for you. So we were just
Awesome.
starting on that, and then you got here. I
Very
didn't.
good.
I never do your one hand up. I don't like to steal that. I saved that for you. So if you want to do that, we didn't do that.
Well, okay. In that case, then, for the sake of tradition, for the sake of custom, for the fourth dimension big book study, for all who would everybody please put one hand up like this? Everybody put another hand up like this. Everybody go, oh,
Oh yeah.
yeah. Look at that. I never get tired of seeing that. Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks everyone. Thanks, Brad, for taking the initiative to get things kicked off and getting things started. And thanks everyone for sticking around and trusting that I would eventually get online. So that's great. Um, so Brad, you just talked about the 4 columns, what we, kind of how we set things up in the book, like in the notebook, writing out the lines and so on. Is that kind of what you talked about?
Yeah, we were just like I really just said, this is how we, our horizontal line, two vertical lines, fill a bunch of pages up in our book, and that's really as far as we got when you got here.
I love it. I love it. Okay. And let me try and show a little visual example of it here in just a moment. I'm, as I said, guys, I'm in Houston, so I don't have my whiteboard available right now. But let me share this with you. There we go. Okay, can you guys see that? All
Yes.
right, so that's how we're going to set it up. And that's exactly what it's going to look like, okay? Column 1, column 2, column 3, and then finally column 4 at the bottom. And, one of the things my first sponsor pointed out to me is like, you take a look at which of those columns is the largest is also indicative of which of those columns is going to be the most important. Okay, and the most important work that I'm going to do in step 4, whether we're talking about resentments or whether we're talking about fear or whether we're talking about sex conduct, the most important work I'm going to do is going to be in that 4th column, the largest column. Okay, the one at the bottom there. So last week, as far as we got through column 1, which is making our grudge list. Okay, making our list of people, principles, or institutions with whom we are angry. And then column 2, right? We talked about why we were angry. Okay, we asked ourselves why we were angry. We talked last week about we're going to say a prayer before we start, and we say a prayer when we're finished doing any writing. Okay. We talked about the importance of having a special, step 4 spot where I'm securely storing my step 4 whenever I'm not working on it. And we talked also, I'll share this for you guys. We talked about resentment inventory prompt sheet. Okay, and you can easily find this online. You can easily find this on Google. This is just a good list that will just kind of trigger things that I might be resentful towards people, institutions, or principals with whom we're angry. And we're going to start with just column 1. Okay, and we only do column 1 at first. We don't go across the columns. We do all of column 1 first. Okay, and so really, I say a prayer, I start doing writing. We talked about the 10-minute timer last week and the importance of setting a 10-minute timer and making a commitment to myself that I'm going to do a minimum of 10 minutes of writing every day. Okay. And I start doing that column 1. And and literally, guys, I mean, when, I can, I'm going to show you something here. When I talk to you guys about doing this, I want you to know, like, this is how I live. This is, part of what I do in my life. And I still can see here, maybe, I don't want you to see too much. I don't want you to see what's actually written there. Anyway, I don't know how well you can see that, guys, but this is a little notebook that I have. Okay. And that's exactly what I've done. Okay. And I make those lines in the notebook and I go ahead and I start doing the writing. Okay, so that's all of column 1. I do that for that column 1 first and get that finished. And with my sponsees, I'll get to a point where I'm like, okay, do you think you're done? Like, yeah, I think I'm done. Okay, then we move on to column 2. Fine, move on to column 2. More names are gonna come. More will be revealed, certainly. Okay, and as new names come to mind, I just keep writing new names down. But I'm moving to column 2. Now, the only real direction that I have, and I believe about column 2, is that in our book, if you go to page 65 in your book and look, you'll see that in the descriptions in the example in the book, they never use more than 19 words for any one of those descriptions as to why we're angry. Okay, so we asked ourselves why we're angry. I'm never going to use more than just 19 words. Okay. In terms of describing exactly why I'm angry. Okay. Because what I don't want to do is get into like the 3-part mini series, the ongoing saga of everything that's wrong with little King Kevin's life. Okay. No, these are quick bullet points. He lied to me. They stole from me. She betrayed me. Whatever it is, we're just making quick little notes in column 2. That's it. Okay. So column 1, we asked ourselves, column 1 is who we're angry at, people, institutions, or principles. Column 1. Column 2, still continuing to just explain why we asked ourselves why we were angry. Okay. So now what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to move into column 3. And the third column is simply to be considered as how's it affected me? Affects my, okay? Affects my is column 3. So I want everyone to go. We'll go to page 64. Okay. Page 64 in our book. And Brad, if you could, let's start at the bottom of page 64 on resentment being the #1 offender. Resentment is the #1 offender. But you know what, guys, like, let's just pause for a second. Brad, before you do that, let's remind ourselves, and it's a good thing. Anytime I sit down with a sponsor to do step 5, I want to remind them, why am I doing this step 5? Why are we doing this stuff? Okay. Why are we doing this stuff? Why am I here? Why am I doing this? What Bill Wilson calls it seems like a painful and pointless piece of surgery. Why am I doing this? Okay. And the reality is what I'm doing is trying to be rid of the things that are blocking me from the sunlight of the Spirit. Okay. What I can't do is just come to AA and flip a light switch and just get God and then tap dance down the road towards happy, contented sobriety permanently. Okay. I thought that I could. Okay, just come to AA and accept spiritual help, and that's it. AA would just give me spiritual help like I was buying a gym membership, and then just go on, down the road towards happy sobriety. It's not that easy. Why? The paradox that I faced at step 3 is that I needed God, I wanted God, I knew I had to have God in order to get sober. I knew I was in a situation that my life was completely unmanageable and I was totally powerless, and I was in a trap from which there was no escape. I was in a game that I could not win. I was fighting a fight that I could not get out of, and I knew I had to have God in my life. But the problem is, and the paradox that I faced, is that at that moment, I was completely full of self. Okay? There was too much me in front of me in order for God to even be able to come into my life. Okay? The analogy that I like to make, you guys hear me talk about this a lot, it's like Wi-Fi. Okay? And we all know, I mean, I had an example of it just now, just tonight. Okay? I wanted to get online, I needed to get online, but I couldn't get online. I couldn't get connected to the power. Why? Because there was something wrong with the connection. There's something wrong with my connection. Doesn't mean the power is not there. Doesn't mean the power abandoned me. Doesn't mean the power doesn't love me. It means that I needed to change something about my connection to the power. And that's what the remaining steps in AA are for. Steps 4 to 12 are to help dial in and get closer connection to the power. So I can get from dial up power to 5G broadband. Okay. We all know what it's like to be in that situation where you're trying to get online, you can't get online. Okay. Power is there. The problem is I needed to change my connection to it. Okay. As Bill Wilson says, I was defeated mostly by worldly clamors, mostly those within myself. Okay. Defeated by clamors, worldly clamors within myself. The purpose of why we're doing this and what we're doing right now is to clear away those things, to open a channel, okay, to get connected to the sunlight of the Spirit, and to be rid of the things that are blocking me from that sunlight, okay? So, with that said, Brad, back to you. Resentment is the #1 offender.
All right. Resentment is the #1 offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease. For we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically.
Okay, now we talked about this line last week, and there's 2 things really key and important here. This is the first place in our book where Bill Wilson talks about the spiritual sickness, where he calls it the spiritual malady. Malady is just a fancy word for sickness. The only other time that we've heard about this is where Dr. Silkworth talks about we become restless, irritable, and discontent. Okay, until I can again experience the sense of ease and comfort that comes at once by taking a few drinks. Drinks I see others taking with impunity. Guys, am I restless, irritable, and discontent when I'm drinking? Or am I restless and irritable and discontent when I'm sober? Sober. We all know that, right? I've asked alcoholics that dozens, hundreds of alcoholics that question. No one's ever gotten it wrong. We all seem to know, intuitively know, I'm restless, irritable, and discontent when I'm sober. And yet I ask that same individual, well, what's your problem? They'll say, well, alcohol is my problem, obviously. No one seems to connect that the actual problem is that I can't stand the way that I feel when I'm sober. And as a result of that, I pick up a drink. I don't have a drinking problem. I have a drinking solution to my sobriety problem, okay? Here, we see the first time that Bill Wilson really puts a name on it. In AA, we call that the spiritual sickness, okay? And the effect of alcohol, the positive effect of alcohol on my spiritual sickness works so incredibly well that it eventually warps my mind into an inability to distinguish the true from the false. I believe the lie, I pick up a drink again, and I'm gone, okay? And by the way, I hear people in AA say a lot, well, I stopped drinking because alcohol just stopped working. Alcohol just stopped working for me, and I had to come to AA. It's like, if it just stopped working, then I wouldn't have any problem. If it just stopped working, I would be at home watching Netflix, eating M&Ms, and alcohol's just not working. The problem is that alcohol works better than anything I ever experienced in my life in terms of soothing this spiritual sickness and this spiritual malady. Okay. So this is the first place where Bill Wilson really puts a name on it. Spiritual sickness, spiritual malady. Then he says, when the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. My man Mark and I were just talking about this. Well, this is Mark's first time at the study. Hey, Mark, I see you there. And where's Maggie? I saw Maggie here. There's Maggie. Hey, Maggie. Yeah, first time at the study. And anyone else, if it's your first time at the study, I want to welcome you. But I just met Mark and Maggie, Margaret, I guess it is today, Margaret, on last weekend. Great to have you guys. Mark and I were just talking about this. When the spiritual malady is overcome, then I straighten out mentally and physically, and in my experience, financially and career-wise and relationship-wise and family-wise and every other way. Okay, this is key, guys. That line that we just read, it's absolutely key. And it's something that's different about Alcoholics Anonymous relative to any other treatment modality in the world. We believe, I believe, as sure as I'm sitting here, that I have to put the spiritual malady, when the spiritual malady is overcome, I have to put recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous and spiritual living first, and then everything else comes. That's not the way I want to do it, is it? Give me the job and give me the car and give me the money and give me the relationship, and then I'll do AA. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Okay. When the spiritual malady is overcome, then we straighten out mentally and physically. Okay. Back to you, Brad.
In dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry.
So that's column 1.
We asked ourselves why we were angry.
That's column 2.
In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambitions, our personal relationships, including sex, were hurt or threatened. So we were sore, we were burned up. On our grudge list, we put opposite each name our injuries.
Okay, let's stop here, Brad. This is column 3 now. Okay.
Was it our self-esteem, our security, our ambitions, our personal or sex relations which had been interfered with?
Okay, so guys, this is what we do. We list these things in column 3. Was it my self-esteem? Was it my security? Now, there are 3 types of security that I have been taught and that I teach my sponsees to look for. There is physical security. Okay, so the person or the situation that I resent, did it put my life or my physical well-being in jeopardy? Threaten my physical security? Then there's emotional security. Okay, which means, did it hurt my feelings? They hurt my feelings. Okay, that's the that's the second one. Hurt feelings, emotional security. And the third one is in the previous page, Bill Wilson refers to pocketbook, okay, which means financial, okay, financial security. Okay, so we're looking at physical security, emotional security, financial security. Okay, then my ambition, my personal relationships, or my sex relationships. Okay, so I look at each resentment and I ask myself, did this thing impact my self-esteem? Did it hurt the way that I feel about myself in the world? I mean, I think we all know what self-esteem is. It's how we feel about ourselves. Did this resentment impact my self-esteem? And we'll go through some examples of this, okay? Then, did it impact my physical security, my emotional security? Did it hurt my feelings? Financial security? Did it mess with my money? Ambition. Did this resentment impact the way that I feel about doing things in the world and trying new things and going and creating things in the world? Or did it just make me want to give up? Okay. Personal relationships, which is just friendships and family relationships, maybe coworkers and so on. Sexual relationships. Did it impact my, relationships with my lover, my partner, my girlfriend, my wife, whatever it might be, my husband for that matter? Okay, did it impact my sexual relationships? So that's what we do. We go through each resentment and I ask myself, did it impact all of these things? Now, when I do this, I write it out every time. I write the word out every time. Okay. I don't abbreviate. I don't use just the first letter. I mean, sponsees always ask me if, can I just make check marks? And no, I can't, because half measures avail me nothing. Okay. And I think it's important for me to have these locked and loaded in my head all the time. And we'll talk more about this when we get to step 10. But this step 4, and the way that I've learned to do it, and the way that I'm teaching you guys, and the way that you're going to take this and teach your sponsees down the road, this is a tool, man. This is when we talk about spiritual toolkit in AA, step 4 is one of the big ones. It is also one of the ones that is probably most misunderstood in AA, I think, and the one where people get the most confused. Okay. And I don't know about y'all, but when I get confused, I get angry. When I get angry, I just give up and I quit and I go drink. Okay, that's how it is. And we want to make this simple for people. Okay, and so I think it's important for me to write it out every time, so I have it loaded in my memory, and I'm able to talk to people about it very quickly. So every resentment I have, I just look. Self-esteem, yes, I write self-esteem. Emotional security, yes, I write emotional security, and so on. Okay, I write them all out every time. So that I have them and I'm readily able to access them anytime that I need. So let's talk about some examples, okay? Let's say I was resentful about an ex who maybe lied to me and cheated on me and stole money from me, okay? X, and it could be, let's just say, for example, let's say that situation happened to me in my life. So they cheated on me, they lied to me, and they stole money from me, this person, okay? Does that impact my self-esteem?
Yes.
Yeah, you better believe it does, like nothing else when someone cheats on us, okay? For sure. Did it impact my physical security? Well, it depends on the cheating situation, but yeah, they could put me in danger for like STDs or something like that, for sure. Okay. Did it impact my emotional security? Absolutely. It's devastating. That kind of a thing happened. Okay. Did it impact my financial security? Well, yeah, they stole money from me, didn't they? Yeah. Yeah, you bet that impacted my financial security. Okay. Does it impact my ambition? Yeah. How quick do you think I'm going to be to want to get into a new relationship with someone else, or do anything in life, or trust anyone, or go make money because heck, someone's just going to steal it on you anyway? Okay, so it impacts ambition that way. Personal relationships, yeah, probably impacted my personal relationships and sexual relationships. Yeah, certainly with that person, and who knows, in the future, maybe I'm not able to trust people anymore, so on and so forth. Okay, so what I want you guys to see is that the more of these effects mine that are activated or triggered in column 3, the more serious the resentment is, or vice versa. The more serious the resentment is, the more of these things in column 3 that are going to be impacted. Okay, does that make sense, you guys? So I think we talked about this last week. All of us have resentments when we get to AA, and we all have some what I call $50 bills. We got some $50 bills, some major core life resentments, but we also have a lot of just nickel and dime resentments. Okay, I got to clean up the nickels and dimes because they'll add up quickly. But with those $50 bills, like an ex who cheated on me, lied to me, and stole money from me, you better believe a lot of those in column 3 are going to be affected. Okay. Now, let's say I had a teacher in high school who told me I was stupid. Okay. Let's say that was my resentment. Mrs. Carmichael, we'll say Mrs. Carmichael told me I was stupid in high school. Okay. Is that going to impact my self-esteem? Well, for
Yeah.
sure. Hurt my feelings greatly. Is that going to impact my financial security? Well, maybe not. Maybe if I gave up on school and said I'm never going to go to school, I don't even want to get a university degree because I'm stupid. So I'm maybe that impacted my financial security. Physical security? No, probably not. Did it impact my ambition? Yeah, probably. You think I'm going to want to go to school anymore and be a good student and so on and so forth? Did it impact my personal relationships? Maybe not. Did it impact my sexual relations? Probably not. Okay. So a resentment like that, not as many things in column 3 are being activated relative to the resentment, because that would be more of like a $5 bill resentment relative as opposed to a $50 bill resentment. Okay. So anyway, guys, that's what we do in column 3. Column 1, who I'm angry at. Column 2, why am I angry? Column 3, how is it affecting me? Self-esteem, physical security, emotional security, financial security, my ambition, personal relationships, sexual relationships. Okay. So very good. Now, Brad, I'm just gonna hand it back to you, and we'll continue going.
We were usually as definite as this example. I am resentful at Mr. Brown. The cause, his attention to my wife, told my wife of my mistress. Brown may get my job at the office.
So I
Affects
just want to point out here, guys, as well, that's where I get the example from. We never use more than 19 words. Okay. In that first example, under Mr. Brown, under the cause, Bill Wilson uses 19 words here to describe why he's angry. We never write more than 19 words. We want to keep it short, little tiny bullet points.
So it affects my, his attention to his wife affects his sex relations and his self-esteem, and there's fear. And the mistress, it affects his sex relations and his self-esteem, and there's fear. And the job affects his security and his self-esteem, and there's fear. So Mrs. Jones, she's a nut. She snubbed me. She committed her husband for drinking. He's my friend. She's a gossip. That affects his personal relationship, self-esteem, and there's fear involved, right? My employer, unreasonable, unjust, overbearing, threatens to fire me for drinking and padding my expense account. That affects his self-esteem, with some fear and security. And his wife misunderstands and nags, likes Brown, wants the house put in her name. That affects his pride, personal sex relations, security, and fear. We went
Very
back,
good. Thank you, Brad.
we went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. When we were finished, we considered it carefully. The first thing apparent was that this world and its people were often quite wrong. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore. Sometimes we were remorse and then we were sore at ourselves. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. But with the alcoholic, whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. We found that it is fatal, for when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the Spirit. The insanity of alcohol returns and we drink again, and with us to drink is to die. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics, these things are poison.
Okay, and so I just want to say that line brainstorm, when they say the grouch and the brainstorm are not for us, this is the meaning of the word brainstorm has changed since 1939 when this book was written. Today, brainstorm means, we're going to get together with a whiteboard and a magic marker and we're going to brainstorm some great new ideas about something, right? Brainstorm in 1939 meant, yeah, there you go. Violent fits of rage. Thank you, Rob. Exactly. Okay. That's it. So I just wanted to be clear about that word because sometimes people get thrown off. So guys, look, this is one of, and we're just going to go through this part tonight because we started late and I don't want to have everyone hanging on for too long tonight. We're not going to finish resentments tonight because I don't want to rush through this next part because it is one of the absolute pivotal turning points in life for an alcoholic. And it was one of the most meaningful and powerful things that I ever learned. And I don't know how I missed it for so long. Step 4, resentment, to me was always a 4-column inventory. So column 1, column 2, column 3, and then column 4. And you would just do column 4 and kind of figure it out. And I would do those treatment center step 4s where you kind of, fill in the blanks or make little check boxes where, when they gave it to you and that was really it. What we're going to learn right now, what we're going to go through, guys, is a part in step 4 that occurs between column 3, affects my, and column 4. Okay. There is a step, there is an action that I must take before I do that. Okay. And so we're going to turn back to the list. And we're going to look at it from an entirely different angle. And I'm going to take you guys through this and I'm going to explain to you what I do and how I live and what I've learned. And I'm going to share it with you, brothers and sisters. And it's absolutely one of the keys to the kingdom of sobriety, one of the keys to the kingdom of recovery. Okay. So Brad, back to you.
We turned back to the list, for it held the key to the future. We were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. We began to see that the world and its people really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had power to actually kill. How could we escape? We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how? We could not wish them away any more than alcohol. This was
By the way, it says there, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real. That is one of the truest statements that Bill Wilson ever writes. Okay. The wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had the power to actually kill. Okay. So yeah, we all know about these fancied resentments. Okay. That like, hey, we write them down, fantasy resentments, or just resentments I made up, or I just kind of imagined, or I look back and right away I put a little bit of sunlight on them and I can see, oh man, I made up half of that. And it's easy to let that go. Those nickel and dime resentments, that's easy to let go. Let me tell you what's hard to let go. What's hard to let go is when people really harmed me. They meant to harm me. They wanted to harm me. They intended to harm me, and they were successful in that enterprise. Okay? When people really harm us, that is hard to let go because it's justifiable anger. Okay? And that may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics, these things are poison. Okay? So even in the situations where I was really, truly harmed by people, and of course, here I'm talking about maybe things happened to us in childhood, okay, where people really harmed us. And God knows I held on to that stuff for years and used that stuff as an excuse for my continued behavior and my continued drinking and justifying and living in morbid self-pity and remorse and hatred about these things, these real harms that people had done to me. In any event, whether the resentment is fancied or real, I have to find a way to let it go, to forgive and to be free of it. And one of the things I've learned in my life, one of the most important things I've learned, is that forgiving someone who really harmed me, okay? And I'm willing to meet you halfway and say that I understand everyone on this call. You have people in your life that really harmed you. I know. Okay? I believe you. Doesn't matter though. That stuff is going to kill me. I've got to find a way to forgive them. And forgiving does not mean condoning what they did. I'm not saying that what they did is okay. What I'm saying is I'm forgiving them. I am just letting it go. Forgiving does not mean condoning these real harms. Doesn't mean condoning it. Forgiving just means letting go. That's exactly right, Rob. Forgiving is simply accepting the apology that is never going to come. But I accept the apology anyway. And I get to live free. And most importantly, guys, I get to live sober. Because I don't know about y'all. Raise your hand if you ever got drunk at somebody. Okay? That's it, man. I get drunk at people, and some of the people, and in the absence of things, I'll make up. I would bring up stuff from childhood, and I'll use that as an excuse to get drunk. Okay. In any event, I've got to find ways to let this stuff go. And right now, we're going to talk about how we do that in Alcoholics Anonymous, and it is absolutely beautiful. Back to you, Brad.
This was our course. We realized that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. Though we did not like their symptoms and the way these disturbed us, they, like ourselves, were sick too. We asked God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, "This is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done."
Okay, so guys, let's go back. I want to just review what Brad just read. Back at the bottom of page 66. This was our course. We realized the people who wronged us in column 1 were perhaps spiritually sick. Okay. So they have the same spiritual malady that I do. And another way that I've been taught to think about this, and I actually learned this from a great Zen Buddhist master by the name of Thich Nhat Hanh. And he's certainly not a member of AA, and he's certainly not a great AA speaker, but Thich Nhat Hanh taught me a lot of stuff. I mean, not personally, I mean, through his videos and his books and so on. But this is key, and this has everything to do with step 4, everything that we're doing right now. I realized that the people who wronged me were perhaps spiritually sick, and I like to think of them as suffering. They are suffering, okay? Because what I would do sometimes with this spiritual sickness thing is kind of get into a judgmental thing about it. Like, well, he's just a sick SOB anyway. That's his problem, right? Not a lot of compassion in that statement, okay? And what I'm trying to do is grow compassion within myself, okay? Where there had not been any for these people that harmed me. I'm trying to grow compassion and understanding and love for these people. What I needed to do was begin to realize that the people who harmed me, thank you so much, Rob, for putting that up there. The people who harmed me were perhaps suffering. They are suffering. And what Thich Nhat Hanh says is that people who harm us, they are suffering. And their suffering is spilling out of them. And they may not even want to cause me to suffer. That may not even be their intention. But their suffering is spilling out of them, spilling onto me and causing me to suffer. Okay? And I am not even the first victim of their suffering. Who is the first victim of their suffering? They are. They are the first victims of their own suffering. And when I start to look at these things in that way and understand that they are suffering and that their suffering is causing me to suffer, I will begin to feel some level of compassion and love and understanding, even just the smallest beginning of doing that for them. And by the way, guys, I want to say nothing that we're going to learn in this part that we're doing right now or in column 4 actually changes the situation overall. It's not going to change everything, but it will change the way that I look at it. What we're trying to change, my grant sponsor Clancy says that alcoholism is a disease of perception, okay? A disease of perception. I see the world, but I see it terribly. I don't see what grown-ups refer to as reality, okay? I see this little fantasy little movie that I call Little King Kevin's Head, okay? And I see things terribly. What we're trying to do right now is simply change my perception. This is the first change of perception, that the people who harmed me in column 1 were perhaps spiritually sick or suffering like myself. Now, if we go to page 67, it says, we did not like their symptoms, which is column 2, or the way they disturbed us, which is column 3. They, like ourselves, were sick too. Now, the next line, guys, this is a prayer. This is the step 4 anger prayer. Anytime in the big book, it says, we asked anything, we asked, that's a prayer. So now it says, we asked God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience I would cheerfully grant a sick friend. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, this is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God save me from being angry, thy will be done. Okay. So really, this is something that we get from other religions, other denominations have had this ethic for 2,000 years, that we pray for our enemies. Okay, we don't fight our enemies. It's not. This is not about eye for an eye. This is about praying for our enemies. We pray for the people that we resent. Okay, and it gives us directly right there the exact prayer that we say. God, please help me to show this person the same tolerance, pity, and patience I would cheerfully grant a sick friend. This is a sick and suffering man. Show me how I can be helpful to him. God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done. And by the way, guys, the short form of the step 4 anger prayer, okay? If I just need a little pocket edition, simply, God, save me from being angry. God, save me from being angry. God, save me from being angry. And notice it doesn't say, God, please remove my anger, or God, please take away my anger. It says, God, save me from being angry. Why does a guy like me need to be saved from being angry? I'll tell you 2 reasons. Number 1, because I don't do anger a little bit. Okay, I don't do anything. I'm a man of extremes. And when I get angry, I drive anger like a fast car into a brick wall, and I start hurting people immediately when I get angry. Okay, I get anger and I get out of control. You know, it was like, you know, Maggie and Mark, you guys were there at the treatment center when I shared. I said alcoholics are people with low distress tolerance and low emotional regulation. Okay. And when I get angry, I have no emotional regulation. I get way out of control right away. Okay. And I'm sure there's others here tonight who identify with that. I need to be saved from my anger. God save me from being angry. The other is because resentment is the #1 offender and it kills more alcoholics than anything else. When I get that way, I drink, man. That's how it is. If I become spiritually sick in that way, I am liable to drink again. It is just that easy. For alcoholic, anger is poison. Okay. God save me from being angry. Okay. So that is we call that the step 4. A lot of people call it the sick man prayer. I think of it as the step 4 anger prayer. Okay. And so what I think about is, you know, we've got the lines at the top and then the big section at the bottom. This is just like little dotted line underneath column 3. Okay. Just little dotted line. And I just write in there, prayer, step 4 prayer. Okay. Page 67. And then you'll see another connection that my first sponsor made for me. This is so beautiful, brothers and sisters. I just love this. Make a little line, make a little note, and say, read page 552. Okay, write that right where we are on page 67. Okay, and sear that into your brain, brothers and sisters. Page 67, page 552. That is the step 4 anger prayer, and this changes lives. This changed my life, 100%. 100%, no question. This changed my life forever. So if you would, everyone, flip over to page 552 in the back of the book and make a little note there, step 4, anger prayer by page 552. And then Brad, please read that for us. Thank you.
He said, in effect, if you have a resentment you want to be free of, if you will pray for the person or the thing that you resent, you will be free. If you will ask in prayer for everything you want for yourself to be given to them, you will be free. Ask for their health, their prosperity, their happiness, and you will be free. Even when you don't really want it for them and your prayers are only words and you don't mean it, go ahead and do it anyway. Do it every day for 2 weeks and you will find you have come to mean it and to want it for them. And you will realize that where you used to feel bitterness and resentment and hatred, you now feel compassionate understanding and love.
Okay. Well, there it is. Okay. Every day for 2 weeks. Now, what I'm going to say, guys, is that I don't ask my sponsees to say these prayers for every person on their resentment list every day for 2 weeks. I will say that I ask my sponsees to say that prayer or some version of that prayer at least one time for every resentment that they have. A lot of the nickel and dime resentments are going to start to dissipate, but we may still have those $50 bills. And you better believe me, man, those $50 bills are going to take weeks of prayer. It's just the way that it is. Okay. They're going to take a lot of prayer. And so, what we want to do is I'll say, okay, let's say I'm resentful towards someone named Mike. Okay. God, please help me show Mike the same tolerance, pity, and patience I would cheerfully grant a sick friend. Mike is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God, save me from being angry. Thy will, not mine, be done. Okay. Then, God, please grant Mike, as it says on page 552, the same tolerance, pity, and patience that I would cheerfully grant a sick friend. And sorry, guys, just 1 second. Please, God, give him health, his prosperity, and his happiness. And what it says is that we will be free. We will be free. I will be free when I start to do that. Okay. And little by little, we will start to overcome these things. Now, it's not, we're not finished. We're going to get into column 4 next week, column 4 of our resentments. Okay. But I have to say this prayer about each one of those resentments so I can get clear. I can get some clarity before we go into step 4. And in step 4, what we're really looking at, guys, is where am I to blame? Okay. What decisions based on self did I make that put me in this position to be hurt in column 4? But if I'm still clogged up with that channel is clogged up with the anger that I have towards these people, I'm not going to be able to see it clearly. And most times, spoiler alert, most times I can't see it clearly either, which is why I have to go do a step 5 and let my sponsor tell me what the deal is. Anyway, okay? But I'm going to say this prayer, okay? God, save me from being angry. God, please help me to show Mike or, whoever the same tolerance, pity, and patience I would cheerfully grant a sick friend. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, Mike is a sick man, sick and suffering man, suffering. Mike is suffering, and I'll think about him suffering. Okay, he's suffering. Please show me how I can be helpful to him. God, save him from being angry. Thy will, not mine, be done. Now, one last thing before we go, and this is why, I don't want to rush through this, because I'm going to share with you guys something that was shared with me early on in recovery, and I think it's absolutely a life changer, and it's called we call it the hospital meditation. Okay. And for the guys that I work with, the guys that I sponsor, they just know, like, this is just another tool in the toolkit. Okay. So we call this the hospital meditation. And what we're going to do, and we're going to do this together right now. Okay. It says in our book, we think of them as sick people. God, help me to give them the same tolerance, pity, and patience I would cheerfully grant a sick friend. Okay. Well, what's a way for me to really solidify in my mind that this person is actually genuinely, really sick and suffering? How can I actually, get a real strong sense of that? Not just a throwaway term that I say. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a meditation, so to speak. It's a thought exercise. It's a meditation of going to a hospital and envisioning them in a hospital bed and thinking about how I would feel for them in that moment. Okay. So I want everyone now to just think of a resentment that you might have. Okay. I know you're all spiritually fit and it'll be really hard, but try to make one up if you can. Pretend that you have a resentment towards somebody. Okay. Okay. And by the way, guys, I'll say this can be pretty heavy duty. So don't pick one of your $50 bill resentments, please. Okay. Don't pick a nickel and dime either, because that's kind of silly, but I'll call like a $5 resentment. Okay. And that money thing is a really, really helpful tool when you're working with sponsees too, right? It's just a helpful way. I mean, you guys know, I bet you all know exactly what I mean when I say a $5 resentment, don't you? Right? It's not a $50 bill. It's not a nickel and dime. It's a $5 resentment. Okay. I want you to think of one and just hold it in your head. And what I want you to do, everybody close your eyes. I've done this countless hundreds of times, and I'm excited to take you guys through it, man. It is absolutely one of the keys to the kingdom of recovery and keys to the kingdom of God, man. So everybody close your eyes. I want you to picture in your mind's eye a hospital that you're very familiar with, that you know, that you can picture in your mind. Okay. I am picturing, for me, it's the Peter Lougheed Hospital in Calgary, Alberta. Okay. And I am going to visit in the hospital this person that I resent. And so I think about walking into the hospital, walking through, the doors and getting that hospital smell. And then I want you to think about, I think about going to the gift shop in the hospital. I know exactly what the gift shop is in the Peter Lougheed. I want you to think about, you are going in to visit this $5 resentment of yours, and in the hospital gift shop, I want you to think about what gift or what thing you would get for them, whether it might be a chocolate bar or a bottle of water or a magazine or whatever it is. What would you get for that person? Okay. And then I want you to think about, going out of the gift shop into the elevator with those big, elevator doors, hospital elevators, and going up to the floor and walking off past the nurses unit and walking in, those hospital doors with the metal latch, those big wooden doors, and you open the door and there is, sitting in the hospital bed, this person that you resent. But it is not how you have ever known them. This is, you are seeing them now, very, very sick, on their deathbed, so to speak, scared and emaciated, and you can tell that they're in pain. They're in physical pain. And I want you to just try and imagine in that moment how you would feel for them. And this is a tool that I use all the time, guys, just to think about, how angry would I be with them in that moment? Maybe still some degree of anger, but I can start to build that little bit of compassion for them. And then what I want to think about is, what is like an act of kindness or some act of service that I could do for them, whether it might be, opening the curtains in the hospital room, let the sun shine in, or maybe I'm adjusting their pillows or helping them just get comfortable. When people get sick, oftentimes their lips get very dry. So imagine taking a little cup of ice and just helping to, moisten their lips a little bit, whatever it is, thinking about the person that we resent as a sick and suffering person just for a moment, and trying to hold that level of compassion in my heart, even just for 1 minute. And that's the hospital meditation. Okay, you guys, so you can finish now. You can open your eyes. Thank you everyone for participating in that super, 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 super powerful tool. Okay, I recommend you continue to use that and share that, guys. There's 30 people on the call right now. That's 30 more people who now know about the hospital meditation. And now you can go and share all of that with your sponsees. Incredible, incredible. Okay. And I want to tell you guys a story. And then we'll finish for tonight. And everyone can we'll close with the Lord's Prayer, and then don't run away. Everyone stay online if you can, and we'll just go around the room and everyone can say hello and introduce yourselves. It's my favorite part of the night. So I had a friend who attended this big book study. I call him a friend now. I mean, he was from Kansas. I never met him to this day. I've never met him. He was from Kansas, but we went through step 4, and he contacted me after, and he said, Kevin, I've got a resentment and it's killing me, and I can't get rid of it, and I don't know what to do, and I need your help because I'm worried I'm going to drink. He had been many years sober, but he's like, I'm going to drink over this if I can't get help. I said, yeah, brother, what? Lay it on me. Like, what? Tell me all about it. And quite sadly, he was resentful at the man who murdered his niece. Okay, so he had a niece, a young girl that young, like I think she was under the age of 10, that he loved very much, and I don't know the circumstances, but there was a man who was currently in jail for homicide and had been charged with murder in her death, and he hated this guy. Of course he did. What could be more justifiable anger than that? What could be a more real resentment than that? Of course, he's justified. But do you see what I mean here, guys? It's not a fancied wrongdoing of others, fancied or real. This is a real, this guy really hurt him. Okay. And he had to find a way out of it. And so we did this hospital meditation. And I will tell you, it didn't work the first time. Okay. And it didn't work this, it took a long, many repeated attempts every day for 2 weeks. And he would call me and we would go through this meditation together. Okay. And I will never forget that we started doing it, and I said, okay, and we stop in the gift shop, and what will you get for him in the gift shop? What will you get for him? A bottle of water, magazine, chocolate bar? He said, I'm not getting him anything. Nothing. I said, okay. I didn't push him. And then we did the rest of the meditation up to the hospital bed, and yeah, I guess, yeah, whatever. Okay. And then it brings tears to my eyes. I'm gonna cry just thinking about it. Okay, but we did this many days in a row. Stop at the gift shop. What we get? I'm not getting him anything. Nothing. Let's go. Like, okay, I get it. And then one day, I said to him, "Okay, we're at the gift shop. What are you gonna get him?" And he said, "I'll get him a bottle of water." And in that moment, everything changed. In that moment, he was free. Okay. And nothing had changed. Didn't bring his niece back. The criminal was still in jail. He still had hurt, but he had found a beginning of forgiving this individual. Didn't mean he condoned what the guy did. It just meant in that moment, he began to let it go in some degree, and he was free. He was free, and he gets to stay sober now because he did that work, and he was able to find some degree of understanding that this guy was sick and suffering and certainly deserves forgiveness. Okay. Okay. That's it, guys. That's it for tonight. Again, sorry, very sorry I was late. Thank you all for sticking around.